Hi, welcome to Detours Understanding Acquired Brain Injury. With us, our usual Friday night guest, Blake, and he's here, Friday night football with CTE, and we're going to be discussing an issue that is a serious problem with furthering education and understanding CTE. Hi, Blake, and
Hey.
Hey.
Hey, everyone who's watching. So do you want me to start?
Yeah, if you please
dive into it.
Yeah,
Perfect.
introduce, explain what you're thinking,
So what I've been thinking about this past week is, since I've been reaching out and trying to connect with a lot of old teammates, players, and trying to get an understanding of how a lot of them they're just not wanting to talk to me about it, even though some of them have either admitted it, had told me they do everything that I've been doing in my videos as far as symptoms, and then they just put it to the back of their mind. So I thought a lot about, because I've been doing research on TBI, CTE. I started kind of diving into all of it to get a general understanding of all of it. And I realized a huge difference between people with traumatic brain injuries and CTE is people with CTE suffer from the boiling frog syndrome. So it's that theory that you can put a frog into a pot of water, lukewarm water, it'll sit there. And over time, as the temperature rises, that frog doesn't ever realize it, just keeps adapting to its situation until the water is boiling. And once that water is boiling, it realizes it, but at that point is too weak to jump out of the boiling water. And so this reminds me of almost, kind of my own personal journey of knowing it. And then it slowly got to a point where the water started boiling, and I needed someone to put their hand in the water and yank me out of that boiling water. And it was just a real slap in the face. And I think a lot of these guys, a lot of people, they're dealing with this. Not just football players. That's who I'm trying to connect with first, obviously, because that's who I know. But a lot of them, their water's starting to boil, and they're going to chalk it up to a lot of different things in their life. And if they can just realize it and get a little bit ahead of it or slow it down, my life has dramatically changed in the last couple of months. Just doing a couple of small things that I've done. And so, even if these guys aren't willing to start going and getting brain scans and researching it, I'm going to be down their throats trying to educate them about just the smallest things they can do. And so that kind of brings me to, actually, do you want to jump in and talk real quick about, I keep forgetting the term you're using about, having a condition, having, brain injuries, and then not either realizing.
Yes. There's a difference between psychological denial, which is more of a ego defense mechanism, one of the defense mechanisms, versus anosognosia. Agnosias cover a broad variety of neuropsychological conditions. And like there's visual agnosia, auditory agnosia, tactile agnosia, which is a disconnection syndrome. And what that basically is where different part where you have white matter tracts and bundles that are disconnected from one area from another. And it leads to, for example, a visual agnosia would be if you would look at something and not recognize what it is, a common object, for example, seeing a key and not knowing what it is. You see this in strokes and other things like that. But anosognosia, it's Greek, meaning it's two words, meaning our lack of recognition of illness. And this is a neuro problem. It can be perplexing to a lot of families. It's probably one of the things that makes rehabilitation with brain injury patients. I mean, CTE patients are brain injury patients, okay? The thing is, with CTE, it is a traumatically induced progressive dementia. All right, what do I mean by that? What I mean is, unlike a lot of primary dementias, like the ones you're used to, Alzheimer's, hunting, or Alzheimer's, or Parkinson's, or usually there's a heavy genetic influence, and there's other factors. And my bet is those other factors are things like traumatic brain injury in life, things like that. And I'm willing to bet there's a lot of overlap between Alzheimer's patients in the nursing homes and CTE patients. I'm willing to bet a lot more of those patients are CTE patients than we realize.
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet a lot more. And we just didn't know, didn't label it, they are what are called tauopathies. That you could check out my one video where I discuss TBI and dementia. But anyway, I digress, which I do a lot. So anyway, so what's going on here is with the anisygnosias are they literally do not know that they have a problem. Unawareness, lack of awareness of an illness. They do not know that they're having a problem. The areas of the brain that communicate are disconnected. The white matter tracts the inferior bundles, the inferior white matter bundle that is responsible, the fronto-occipital operculum is disconnected. The inferior fasciculus is disconnected. Not completely, but usually there's damage and bruising, and so it is not working right. And when you're in that kind of situation, your brain is the feedback it gets is everything's okay. Even if you, in the process of cooking, are setting off more than the timer on the stove, when you get that loud overhead beeping from the smoke detector, everything is still fine. But this also applies to other things. Getting into a fight with a coworker because you screwed something up, or your kids are like going to school in same clothes for 2 weeks, everything is fine. They're coming home with failing grades, and you're like, yeah, whatever, everything is fine. This is a neurological. Now denial is different. Denial is, I'm aware there's a problem, but I can't deal with it. And it isn't a conscious rejection necessarily, but at some level, there's a problem, but you just can't deal with it. And splitting the two is hard. It is difficult to identify the two. But when you try to do something that you say you can do and get hurt in the process physically, or something like, if a blind person, Anton syndrome, if you drive your car when you're blind and crash into a tree and then explain it away by like a fly flew into my eye or something like that, or my eyes are dry, then there's a sign there's a neuro problem instead of, but differentiating the two can be challenging.
Right.
But yes, there is a difference.
Yeah. So that kind of brings me to my next, reason I believe that, we're not educating each other more, or it's not out there more. And that's, I felt for a long time, I was almost on autopilot. Like I was still able to function through my life.
Yes.
And I just got in this routine. I could go through that routine and everything was fine. And I almost described the last, 7-8 months of my life as my autopilot being turned off. And all of a sudden I had to hop back in that pilot seat again. And it's like, oh, I have to fly this plane myself now. I'm not able to use just all these other things to navigate around my life. And I had to immediately, you learn how to navigate. Well, not immediately. Obviously, it's been a process, relearning how to do that. But a big part for me with education is I don't want anyone to get to the point where their autopilot turns off. I want to be able to get them back to where they know how to fly. Let's turn that autopilot off and move on,
Yeah.
So a lot of this is going to sneak up on guys. I think it probably hit me a little bit earlier because I started earlier, and I played kind of a rough position. And so a lot of these guys, I think, you need to realize if you're on autopilot, then it's time to take a look at yourself and start to do these self checks. Even if you need to talk to your partner or whoever, people that are the closest to you, those are the people that are really going to recognize change. And those are a lot of people that help me, my support system through a lot of this is just being 100% honest with you about what's going on. So, a lot of that has to do with executive function problems too.
Yes.
Being able to get going.
Anosognosia is a executive dysfunction. And using your autopilot analogy is a good one because something else. You may not be getting the feedback that it's off.
Right.
It's like
Should seem perfectly fine. Yeah.
Yes, it'll tell you everything's fine, even when it isn't fine. Even when you're falling at 2,500 feet per minute. Even when you're the information you get back.
Over the last decade, I've been to a handful of doctor's appointments, and I'm trying to explain to them what I'm going through. And honestly, half of them have just looked at me and gone, well, you seem fine. And I've just been like,
The F word again.
you seem fine to me.
Yeah, I have a video about the F word.
Even the latest, when I had my MRI and went into the neurologist, he's like, you seem fine. And I was like, hold on, I'm not going to pay all this money just to be like, I'm fine. Let's dig deeper into what I'm telling you here. It was just well, it could be this, it could be that, it could be, it's like, okay. So it was a waste of time, but that's there's another reason, maybe guys like me have gone in before, time and time again, and tried to explain what they're going through. But hey, I'm still in shape. Hey, I'm still working a job. Hey, I'm still holding things down. Well, most people aren't doing that, bud. You're doing fine. It's like, okay, you have someone tell you that, you just believe it. Okay, I'm fine. Kind of adds to what you were saying about the kind of having that, the denial,
Yeah, there's a term, medical gaslighting. Medical gaslighting refers to the fact that that many times what will happen is it isn't necessarily intentional, but that I apologize for that, and I don't know whether you're getting. I apologize. Medical gaslighting refers to the fact that sometimes docs will, like when they don't know something, it's like, well, they'll kind of be more dismissive or just assume it's in your head or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, if you think there's something wrong, you need to pursue it actively. Really, it's that simple.
Yeah.
If you're getting symptoms, pursue them. If you're sure there's something wrong, or if your spouse is, pursue that line. Yes, it's a pain in the butt. I do have a video about, and I'll like put the thing about it is like, neurologists, even your neurologist or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
they are trained as neurological generalists, like your PCP, but for your nervous system. Their
Mm-hmm.
exposure to like head injuries, they may have only gotten a few cases. Unless you're going to a brain injury medicine specialist, they have to know Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, MS. They have to know seizures. They got to know spinal cord injury. They got to know
Right.
electromyography. They got to know how to read CT, PET, MRI. They got to know all of that stuff. So, and they got to know it in 3 years. The first year for residency is the internal medicine year. So they get 3 years to know as much as possible. I have a video on why my neurologist doesn't know about my brain injury. There's darn good reason for it, because a lot of people come and complain to that. That's why I made that video.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for it. You need to find a brain injury medicine specialist if you can. And there are even fewer CTE specialists.
Yeah.
But they are out there. Trick
Well,
is,
I am working with one right now, thankfully.
well, yes. And that's important. And you're lucky to be able, because, but there are CT specialty centers and things, but it is also a new diagnosis, or TES, traumatic encephalopathic syndrome. Again, these are the challenges, but you need to know that most docs will dismiss a lot of this. You need to find a specialist, subspecialist.
So let's go on to my the next point I have as far why I think these people who have suspected CTE aren't reaching out more or doing more research is the social stigma. They just want people knowing. A lot of people won't know enough about it, so they'll just Google what's going on real quick. They're going to get a handful of kind of fear-mongering articles or what they so far, and they just don't really know enough to really get a real definite about what's going on. And so, personally, I had people. It was tough for me the first couple of weeks because we only told a couple of people very close to us because I was missing a lot of work and I was I wasn't around. And so obviously there was something going on. And, within a couple of weeks, there were so many people who knew about it, obviously didn't know what it was, Googled it. It was, I had people calling and crying and almost giving this, like, all this sympathy. And it's like, that's not what it's about. At this point, we all need to educate each other,
Yes.
and some of these people don't know it's not just football and these rough and tough sports. And I mean, every day I swear I find a new sport that has a new CTE case,
Domestic violence also.
equestrians, bobsledders, I mean, you name it. So
Domestic violence.
domestic violence, right? So a lot of misconception about it. So I think a lot of people want to stay under the radar. They might do a little bit of research, but they need to, they have a duty as a teammate, if they have that knowledge, to reach out to everybody that
Share it.
they
The
play with
knowledge.
and share their knowledge, and keep sharing it until everyone has gotten help, and we can start reaching all of our other teammates, our previous opponents who we played against. We might have hated them back then and tried to take their heads off back then, but 20, 30 years later, we were taking each other's heads off.
Hey, they're your team. They still, I mean, you don't have a competition if you don't have an adversary, but they still are fellow athletes. I mean, if they had switched teams, if they joined your school, or if they joined your university, they would have been your teammates. Exactly. We're all in this together. This is not a solo thing. No matter how much of a warrior you may be, we're all in this one together.
Yep.
Brain injury doesn't care. Brain injury is your enemy. CTE is your adversary.
And that's funny you said word, because that is my next point, is having that warrior mindset that you can always handle it, that you can always take care of yourself, and walk it off.
I know.
And we're not indestructible as we once thought we were. So time to start being old.
Time to start being human.
Right.
We see early signs of CTE in kids, high schoolers, things like that. It begins young. We now are starting to see early evidence of Alzheimer's signs. I just read an article today in kids, young kids, 6, 5. These diseases do not come from nowhere. There are suggestions that what we considered progressive dementias are lifelong chronic diseases, and CTE and accumulations of tau proteins happen at young ages. We're all in this together. It's important to be a warrior. I admire that. I'm a healthcare provider, but I was a diver, swimmer, runner. I definitely have the warrior mindset in every way, but I also recognize I'm on a team.
Well, it came to the point in my journey where my warrior mentality, I can now look back at it and see that I had a coward's mentality, that I wasn't a warrior at all. I was being a coward,
Cut yourself a break too, though, because a lot of us, what do your coaches tell you? What do our coaches tell us about sticking in there, fight? What do our coaches tell us?
Oh, I mean, fight till the end.
Yeah, you fight for your team.
Fight for your team, yeah.
You don't get back in there, go, and even diving, you're hurt. You're all right to go. You're right. You're ready to start the next one. It's like you're up. It's like we'll put you on the 5 and 1.5 twist instead of doing 2 in the back. Do you think you can handle it? Are you good? Is your knee back? Yeah, I can handle it. It's not going to be worth as many points, but we'll have Jerry go after you and he'll do the 2. And they encourage you regardless. And the thing is, I'm going to dive if I'm sick or not. And you're going to go in there and you're going to bust some heads. Mm-hmm. Even if you're sick, even if you're concussed. So it is definitely a warrior's mentality, but when that changes is when you refuse to ask for help.
Yeah.
Is when you think you're better than the team. It's that narcissistic problem. That's where we've got a problem. I am better than everybody else and I don't need any help. To me, that is where the coward. That's where we got to be clear. It's like you're only a coward if you refuse to admit you need help.
Right.
If you think you were the only one on that team, if there was no team, the old joke about but there's a me, in team. No,
Right.
there may be the word me in there, but all right. So I just want to stress that. I think it's important because brain injury is the enemy. CTE is the enemy. All right. So I apologize. Forgive me. It's another mini rant. I tend to do those sometimes because I'm passionate. I am a zealot for.
I only have one more thing as far as our discussion today, and just that's not people being in denial. It's more of just ignorance of not knowing where to start. So it's not that they don't want to. They're like, oh my gosh, where do I even start?
Yeah.
I think a big thing is just the outreach to all, anyone, groups like this, YouTube pages like this, doing your own research, and then starting to make those small steps to be healthy, whether that's doctor's appointments, brain scans. I think a lot of people, if they start and they're educated to that, they start to see like, oh, I'm starting to see these real weird, these stage 1 symptoms, and they got a grasp of what habits in their life, what they're doing in their life that was making it progress, that they could live in stage 1 for years and years and years and really slow the progression, And so
Yes.
they just can't. I'm just thinking, like, I don't want to see anyone where I was and have to deal with what I've had to deal with. And it's like, if I had just known and was more educated, had someone like me bugging them all the time, and then at some point I'm going to have to, if I had done something off, or if I start forgetting stuff constantly, and then all of a sudden in the back of their head, they're like, oh, I might need to look into this, So
yeah. The thing is, you've got something that a lot of people need to approach this with, and that is a positive determination to fight it. A positive drive that really makes a difference, positive or negative.
Right.
Yeah, that's the one thing that does come from a true warrior's attitude, and that is a positive, I can beat this. We're all going to die eventually. Sorry, we're mortal.
Right.
The question is, how? Do you fight it every day for as long as you can? Do you do your best? Do you follow what the research says? Positive psychology. Every day, approach it as positively as you can. I talked about this yesterday with Lisa, the positive psychology and a positive attitude. Every day, try and, I suggested if you make a complaint about a loved one, about yourself, whatever, you have to counteract it with one positive statement. So you got to pay for it. Every time you bitch about something, you must, as part of the agreement, make a positive statement of equal weight. And every time they complain about you, they have to make a positive statement about
it. Yeah.
And positive mentality, a positive journal, a joy journal, a gratitude journal. Every day, 3 things you're grateful for. And your spouse and your kids, also 3 things they're grateful for. A gratitude journal. Positive psychology is very important to healing from, it's hard to do that, especially if you're used to thinking negative. But it's a good way to change your mindset, even if it's something small. I didn't knock over my milk glass today. Okay, great. As long as you're genuinely positive about it.
Yeah. Yep, I agree.
This is important, I think, for all of us, is to recognize, just to start to recognize, even if you go, I wonder if I got that. It's a first step. We're going to be talking more about doing other things, and Blake will be making his own videos with us here more and more, and put him up. And please watch his stuff on his channel and watch on ours. This is a collective, a large group. So, it's like different people, and you will find on other people's sections of detours mentions of CTE, Nietzsche's rocking chair, which I do because I talk about dementia and brain injury. Mm-hmm. And my point of the reason I use the term rocking chair is because worrying does you no good. Worrying does you no good. It may be something to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere. Focusing on what you can do instead helps. And other people talk about this. Kim talks about this. So does Jenny, and a few other people talk about what you can do to make a difference and how you can help yourself. we talk about rehabilitative activities to work on CTE, how you can rehabilitate, take rehabilitative steps, and talk about which doctors to talk to. Kate talks about, as she does similar to Blake, she's athletic, so, so thanks. And if you have any comments, anything you'd like Blake to respond to or anything like that. And so, we'll just say, any comments, likes, please share this
Yeah,
video.
I'm an open book. Ask me anything if you have a question.
Me too. Yeah, I get passionate sometimes. This is one of the things I deeply believe in, helping people with brain injury. So please don't hesitate to ask. It may take a while to get back because we have a lot of different things going, but please,
Right.
and like and subscribe, share a channel. You may find, even if you don't have CTE, other issues that affect you, this affects all of us in the end. So please like, subscribe, share, comments. We'll see Blake then next Friday.
All right, guys. See you next Friday. Bye.
Bye.